It is one of the most famous tourist attractions on the Earth, and probably the most famous waterfalls, the Niagara Falls. Over 30 million people visit the falls every year. The Niagara Falls lies on the border of Canada and the United States, and are a truly beautiful sight. But in 1969, something very odd happened. A team of engineers and researchers stopped the flow of the Niagara Falls. It was a process that took over 4 years and had astonishing results. For the first time in thousands of years, the Niagara Falls dried out. Even though the operation had a totally different purpose, researchers stumbled upon a major secret that they would have never expected. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Every tourist or local who has ever been to the Niagara Falls can surely affirm one fact: this natural phenomenon is truly impressive and touches the heart of most people deeply. Some come to see the falls and begin to question their purpose in life all over again while standing at the thunderous natural spectacle, only to then return back home and realize how important the connection between humans and nature really is. But now, things were about to change drastically. Any visitor would agree that the Niagara Falls and its waters are a sight no person would ever deny to be impressed by. However, what no one would have ever counted on was soon to become a reality that would lay open secrets far beyond imagination. It all began when the falls were planned to be drained. But why would anyone even dream of doing that? Obviously, the big question is, why did the Niagara Falls have to be drained in the first place? Well, it indeed had several reasons. The first reason was that work was needed to save the landmark. The persistent erosion may eventually eradicate the American Falls. And since the communities around the falls had always greatly benefited from the stream of tourists the falls attract, they started a campaign to save the Niagara Falls. Little did they realize what they would soon encounter. It took years of research to find out how to go about draining the Niagara Falls and how to actually make it happen. Clearly, it was a task nobody had ever performed, and nobody was truly sure about whether it would work or not. Shortly after planning this mammoth project, the first step of the process was put into action. But the big question remained: would it all work out? And was it enough? The first milestone that had to be addressed was pretty obvious. How would it be possible to stop the wuthering water flow of the world-renowned Niagara Falls? After having spent so many years of research on this issue, engineers came up with a rather clever technique, resulting in the unthinkable. They actually managed to reduce the water flow from 60,000 gallons per second to an impressive 15,000 gallons. This opened up another grand opportunity for the researchers. Whilst workers could finally start clearing debris from the falls, another extraordinary opportunity opened up for the researchers. With the falls lying bare naked right in front of their eyes, they were now able to do some aerial shots of the Niagara Falls they would possibly never have the chance to do again. Researchers could finally get a better view and come up with a plan for the long term. And they had to be. Draining the falls might have been a project that had been planned well ahead, but the actual process did not take any longer than 6 hours. Then, the water flow returned to normal. It all appeared to be a success. The worker had done their job clearing the falls from the debris, whilst the researchers had been taking snapshots from above to ensure further research. Little did they realize, however, that this had only been the beginning. It did not take very long until they found out that the massive operation they had been planning for so long just wasn't going to be enough. The work they had done had been good, but laying open the ground beneath the water proved to the team that they needed more time. This meant one thing: the flow of the falls would have to be stopped entirely. Anyone who has ever been visiting the Horseshoe Falls, the famous part on the Canadian side of the Niagara Falls, which transfers a staggering 90% of the total amount of water running through the falls, would surely consider an undertaking such as putting a hold to the water flow of the falls to be an undertaking absolutely impossible to pull through. One question became the most obvious in that regard. It is one thing to realize what has to be done, and another to actually figure out how to. This is especially true when it comes to the near to unthinkable undertaking of putting a hold to the Niagara Falls. Since researchers had already figured out how to reduce the flow in the first place, however, they were confident it would be possible to continue with the plan. And so, a new operation was started, lasting another 2 full years, and they had counted on many things being able to happen. This one, to stop the entire flow of the water, engineers figured they had to build a temporary dam to stop the water. Yes, you might pinch yourself in disbelief, but they actually built a dam for the single purpose of stopping the water of the Niagara Falls from flowing. One can only imagine how long this must have been taken, but eventually the dam was finished. And though building the dam had been quite the undertaking, the next step would be all the more dangerous. On top of everything else, the workers would have to get to the very top of the falls now to remove loose boulders. This wasn't a job they were going to take lightly, however, as they feared that they would fall off the top and possibly die. So to avoid anyone falling off the edge of the massive falls, engineers installed a lifeline in the middle of the river. Would it all be working out without any of the workers falling down into the abyss? Of course, safety goes first, no matter how important the task. The idea of putting up a lifeline had thus been for safety reasons only. However, luckily, the lifeline did not even have to be used, and the workers managed to clear the riverbed off all the loose boulders to make sure the landmark was going to be saved from being damaged by erosion. As it is the case with most big projects such as these, however, the team wasn't finished yet. Far from it. Draining and clearing the falls had indeed been quite the undertaking, and everyone who had been part of the process was happy that everything turned out to be such a success without anyone having been hurt. But that wasn't all. Once the falls were drained, the workers found out that falling off the edge had not even been the scariest part of the entire operation. They were now about to make a discovery that would give them the chills. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Niagara Falls had been running dry, and that in itself had to be considered an attraction on yet another level. And so, even though the locals were afraid that there would be no tourists coming by the Niagara Falls, they were mistaken, and for one good reason. The tourists kept coming to see the astonishing sights, and who could have blamed them? After all, when else would we see these impressive waters of the falls to be laid bare ever again? However, no one had been expecting the very detail that was going to be burned into people's memories forever. For starters, there appeared to be a lot of coins on the bottom of the river, and this caused a lot of tourists to enter the dried-up riverbed to collect them as souvenirs. And even though the riverbed had been running dry for the time being, care had yet to be taken when entering the site. A few daredevils even walked up to the edge of the waterfalls, and while they were very excited, they soon saw that something gruesome was revealed. Whilst coins and anything alike would tell much about the past of the mighty Niagara Falls, perhaps, another sad discovery would soon be dampening the extraordinary adventure that tourists encountered by collecting old coins from the riverbed. It turned out that some people had not been careful when paying the falls a visit in the past, and researchers found the sad remains of a man and a woman who had died in the water mass. And yet, the story would not end there. Despite the gruesome discovery the Niagara Falls had been revealing, one thing is for certain. The falls have definitely lived through many more adventures. Ever since being formed during the Ice Age more than 12,000 years ago, the falls had been an inspiration for locals and travelers, making the visit an unforgettable experience. We are sure to be keeping an eye on this gift that nature has given to us.